Boris Johnson has narrowly seen off a Tory rebellion against his cut to the foreign aid budget. MPs voted by 333 votes to 298, a majority of 35, in favour of the government's motion to continue with a cut to overseas aid spending for the foreseeable future. The result will be a relief for the Prime Minister and Chancellor Rishi Sunak, who were facing the prospect of defeat on the matter. Mr. Sunak hailed the result as he pledged to work with all MPs on how we can continue to be a global leader helping the world's poorest, on how to improve our aid spending, target it most effectively and ensure that it is getting to those who need it most. Last autumn the Richmond MP announced he was cutting the international aid budget from 0.7% of gross national income to 0.5%. He said the decision was necessary because of the monumental increase in government borrowing needed due to the pandemic, but would return when the fiscal situation allows. The announcement sparked outrage among Tory backbenchers at the time, who demanded a vote on the decrease. Rebels had threatened to join with Labour to force the government to recommit to the higher level of spending. The 0.7% is written in law and was restated in the 2019 Conservative Manifesto, with MPs arguing the drop in spending was therefore unlawful. The 0.5% level means £10 billion will be spent on aid this year, about £4 billion less than if the original commitment had been kept. Ministers sprung today's vote on MPs yesterday afternoon after agreeing a compromise motion on overseas aid. The motion set out the circumstances under which ministers would return to 0.7%. Funding would only be increased to the promised level if the Office for Budget Responsibility believes the UK is not borrowing to finance day-to-day spending and underlying debt is falling. The last time such conditions were met was in 2001. A sufficient number of Conservative members were persuaded to back the compromise despite early signs that a high-profile rebellion could inflict an embarrassing defeat. However, a number of high-profile backbenchers followed through with their threat to vote down the motion, including former Prime Minister Theresa May, criticising the government. The de facto leader of the Tory rebellion and former International Development Secretary Andrew Mitchell accused Mr. Sunak of setting a fiscal trap for the unwary via the motion. He said, "It's quite possible these conditions will never be met and you don't need to look in the crystal ball. You can read the book. It is indisputably the case that there has only been one occasion in the last 2 decades, in 2001, when these conditions would have been met." But opening the Commons debate, the Prime Minister defended his approach. He said the ministers all believe in the principle that aid can transform lives and voting for the government's motion will provide certainty for our aid budget and an affordable path back to 0.7% while also allowing for investment in other priorities, including the NHS, schools and the police. As soon as circumstances allow and the tests are met, we will return to the target that unites us, he insisted.